Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar on legal structures and governance for cooperatives. I'm Linda Barlow and I'm the Cooperative Governance Advisor at Cooperatives UK. I'll be delivering this webinar today. Hopefully it'll last about 20 minutes and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So feel free to do that if you have any burning questions. That would be quite useful to outline some background about Cooperatives UK for those who are unfamiliar with our organisation. Cooperatives UK's role is that we're a network for Britain's thousands of cooperatives that together contribute 34 billion to the British economy. We have a mission in order to achieve that, which is to grow the cooperative economy through action to promote, develop and unite cooperative enterprises. We work across all sectors of the UK, which include the major high street retailers and large agricultural businesses, right down to community-owned pubs and credit unions. We promote the cooperative model through our events and webinars such as this. We unite cooperatives and we develop cooperatives through our advice services. What will this webinar cover? Hopefully at the end of the session, you will be aware of all the legal forms available to co-ops. You'll understand what we mean by organisational type as a term. You'll understand what a co-op is, and you'll have an understanding of the different types of co-op and understand the first steps to setting up a co-op. So if we look at legal forms and organisational types, a legal form is what sort of body it is in the eyes of the law. So when the law is looking at your organisation, what does it see? There are different types of legal forms. Some are incorporated, which means the creation of a legal entity that's separate from the people involved, or unincorporated, which is the opposite of that in terms of the law doesn't recognise that the entity is separate from the members involved. The second term is organisational type. This is the use of a term to describe a particular type of body which is in addition to the legal form. It's a descriptive term and is often used in marketing to say that an organisation is a particular type of entity. For example, social enterprise is an organisational type. That social enterprise may have a legal form that's a company limited by guarantee, a cooperative society or an LLP. So you usually find that a legal form also has an organisational type that is used in everyday speak to describe the organisation. So this brings me on nicely to what is a co-op. A cooperative is an autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. This is the definition that the International Cooperative Alliance has put out in terms of making sure that all cooperatives align with the same principles. A more generic term that's often used in practical everyday language is that cooperatives are businesses that are owned and run by the people closest to them, whether they are customers, employees, suppliers or local residents. The members of a cooperative have an equal say in what it does and decide how its profits are shared. It might be worth saying that a cooperative is a organisational type. There's no definition of what a cooperative is in the UK, so the cooperatives choose many different legal forms in order to register. The ICA definition is backed up with 7 cooperative principles. In order to be recognised as a cooperative, there must be voluntary and open membership. So a cooperative must have a membership provision. It must be clear on who the members are, but membership must be voluntary in terms of it's a choice of that person as to whether they want to become a member or not. Membership must be open in terms of that criteria that's set. So if you decide that your employees to become members of the co-op, then it must be open to all employees defined within the membership criteria of that co-op. There must be democratic member control. This means that the members must control the entity democratically This usually involves members having one vote on any business to be decided in general meeting. Member economic participation. This means that the members participate economically in the co-op, i.e. by contributing capital through shares or by paying the £1, which usually entitles them to a vote at general meetings. Cooperatives must be autonomous and independent, so the members must be able to control them and direct the running of the cooperative. They must be independent in terms of being able to make decisions that are in the best interests of the cooperative without being hindered by external influences. Principle 5 is about education, training, information. Cooperatives are businesses and obviously carrying on a trade, but through that trade they look to educate and train people in the values and principles of cooperation. That might be to the members themselves, but to the wider community in which the cooperative operates. Principle 6 is about cooperation amongst cooperatives. Cooperatives look to trade with other co-ops and find opportunities to expand the cooperative economy. And number 7 is concern for community. Cooperatives are about people, so the idea of a cooperative is that people come together to meet a particular need or because they want to contribute something to society. The concern for community is always usually featured in a cooperative. As I mentioned before, a legal form is what entity the law views your organisation as. In terms of a cooperative, there's no one act for incorporation, so cooperatives can be unincorporated or they can choose to register under one of the business forms that's available in the UK. So cooperatives can be limited companies, either company limited by guarantee or by shares. They can be a registered society, which registers with the FCA, a community interest company, which is a specific form of limited company, or an LLP, which is a limited liability partnership. So just to reiterate, cooperatives can register under any legal form. It is the governing document that determines whether you are a cooperative or not. So there'll be principles in your governing document, and that will be given a name depending on the type of legal form your cooperative takes. So for example, if you're a limited company, your governing document will be referred to as the articles. And in those articles should enshrine the values and principles of cooperation. And that determines whether you are a cooperative or not. Just to run through the different legal forms, as I mentioned, you can have a limited company, a cooperative society, a community benefit society, an association, a public limited company, a community interest company, a limited liability partnership, or a charity. Charity is a slight anomaly here, as it is actually a status that you can't have without already having a legal form. So for example, a company will be your legal form, so no organisation is just a charity. I've included it here so that you know that depending on the legal form chosen, some co-ops also have charitable status of one type or another. So now we've dealt with legal forms, I thought it might be quite useful to move on to the types of cooperative that are recognised, certainly in the UK. The first one is a worker cooperative, defined by its employees. So usually employees will come together because they want to benefit from better working conditions. So they come together to create a cooperative. They are the only members of it, and anybody who is employed by the cooperative has the right to apply for membership subject to that criteria in that cooperative's governing document. A secondary co-op is a cooperative made up of other cooperatives. So you usually find some of the federal organisations in the UK, such as Cooperatives UK, has only other cooperatives in membership. So that is what we would term a secondary co-op. A user cooperative is really what it says on the tin. So the membership relationship is defined by people using the services of the cooperative. So this may take on many forms. It may be that the cooperatives provide marketing services on behalf of its members, or back office services because it's more cost effective to do so. Some taxi driver co-ops find that the user type relationship works quite well. So for example, they will have a central resource that can distribute work for them instead of actually going out and finding the work individually. So it makes it more cost effective for them. Multi-stakeholder is the combination of different membership types. So usually you'll find that workers, users, or even sometimes supporters want to come together to meet a common aim. Each will have different needs for coming together, but actually the aim of becoming a multi-stakeholder cooperative, it enables them to deliver that aim. So it enables a cooperative to bring together people with different interests. Housing cooperatives are where tenants come together to own and control a particular property. Usually only tenants may be members of that housing cooperative, and they have control over their own housing. The community cooperative is where people of a particular geographical community or a community of interest come together to deliver a particular need. For example, an energy cooperative would be defined as a community cooperative. For example, they may decide that people in a village want to come together in order to purchase a wind turbine to help them reduce their energy costs, but also contribute towards global warming and creating a more sustainable environment. Agricultural cooperative is where farmers come together in order to benefit from joint working. So an example would be a group of grain farmers coming together to form a cooperative in order to store their grain and to market it to producers of bread or producers of whiskey. So rather than each individual farmer sort of having to have their own produce cleaned and dried for sale, they will come together as a cooperative in order to do that more effectively and often more cost effectively. Consumer cooperative is where the members buy particular goods from the cooperative. An example of this is the cooperative group. You can become a member of that organisation, and in doing so you benefit by having reduced cost on food and goods provided by the cooperative. So I wanted to look at some case studies. So it brought the types of cooperative alive for you. The first one is Bristol Wood Recycling Cooperative. It's a worker cooperative, so as I mentioned before, the employees can be members of it. In this particular case, they've widened the membership provision to allow volunteers to also become members. But the relationship is that the members, the employees and volunteers come together in order to recycle wood and swap their time and energies to be part of the cooperative. In terms of the industry, they look at recycling timber alongside their employees and volunteer members. It's quite a nice quote that they don't feel that they work like a typical business or a typical structure or workplace. They do it together, which is quite a nice thing about being a co-op. And they can include people, everybody that's in it, and everybody's views are important, which is quite a nice way of bringing people together and quite a nice working environment. The members, there's nine employees, but they have hundreds of volunteers, so it's quite a big worker cooperative. The second one is East of England Cooperative, which is a consumer type co-op. Its main industry is retail, food and funerals. It's quite a large membership, 268,000 members and above, and quite a high turnover of 340 million, and also have employees of 4,310. So compared with Bristol Wood Recycling Co-op, it just shows you the size and scale of the cooperative sector and the types of industry that cooperatives operate in. The third one is a community cooperative, And this was a pub called the Bell Inn that was rescued by its members to safeguard the asset for the community. They raised £187,000 to purchase the pub, and each member holds a cooperative share in the pub, and it's run on a one member, one vote basis. So that was an example of where the community came together because they wanted to safeguard a local and trusted asset. So what makes governance different? So we've talked about the legal forms and different organisational types that exist. But what makes cooperative governance different? So we went through the values and principles of cooperation. So it goes without saying that a cooperative has to act in accordance with the cooperative values and principles. There is a stronger emphasis in cooperatives on active democratic member participation. And as owner members, members are encouraged to play a part in the governance. So they're meant to sort of come along and participate in general meetings and make decisions, and also to elect the board and to hold the board to account as their representatives. A cooperative is expected to engage with members and maintain close relations. So this might be about making sure that member meetings are held, that members are invited to come along and air their views, but also reporting to them. So explaining to members what the organisation has done on their behalf throughout the year. So it could be in the annual reporting requirements, or you may do it ad hoc as you go along and send newsletters out to members just explaining what you've done on their behalf throughout the year. A cooperative board acts collectively as custodians of the cooperative to secure the business for future generations of members. So the board are the elected representatives of the members, but it's not just particular members at that time. It's actually about thinking about what the business is going to bring to future generations and making sure that any decisions that they make now are for the benefit of the cooperative in the longer term. A cooperative should act in the best interests of the members and provide member value. So decisions that the cooperative takes should always have in the back of mind, is this in the best interest of the members? Weighing up different types of decision in order to think about what would provide the best member value if they took one decision rather than another. As I mentioned before, it is the governing document that determines whether something is a cooperative or not. So we will be looking for these types of provisions in the governing document to make sure that members have a say in how the cooperative run, and that members have the opportunity to elect the board and obviously to stand for election to the board themselves. Cooperatives UK produced this governance wheel, which quite neatly outlines what is governance best practice in co-ops. What does it look like? So this is quite a nice illustration that outlines that. So at the top, if we take the grey triangle, purpose. So what is the cooperative's purpose? How is it outlined in the governing document? What is its mission and vision? How is it going to get there? So does it have a strategy that helps deliver that mission? So it's important to have a purpose and to work towards that purpose. And the member circle around the governance wheel suggests that members are the people that should drive the purpose of the cooperative and obviously be involved in deciding what that is. There are other elements to the wheel. I'll just pick a few. An effective board, it's really important that a cooperative is led by an effective board. So it's quite right that members should be able to elect their representatives on the board and be able to stand for election themselves. But it's really important that also that those people have the relevant skills in order to take on that position, in order to be a director or board member of that co-op. So it's about being able to educate and train those directors to understand what their duties are, to have a well-balanced board so you know what the skills are that your cooperative board members need in order to develop your business. Have a succession plan in place. So if key board members leave, who would take up those positions? and make sure that you know what the skills are that you need for your board, and evaluate the board skills on a regular basis to make sure that you plug any skills gaps with people from the membership or elsewhere, because it is possible for cooperatives to have independent professional directors on the board if they need the extra skills that perhaps they can't get directly from their membership. The second one I wanted to look at was performance and roles. It's really important that a cooperative complies with the requirements of the legal form it operates under. So if you're a cooperative company, then you need to make sure that you also comply with Companies Act requirements, that you file the appropriate returns on time, that you report to the relevant body, so you register for corporation tax with HMRC, and make sure that you file your returns. That if the board delegates any responsibilities to other members of the cooperative, that those delegation limits are very clear, and ultimately that person knows that the board must make the final decision on any delegation. And perhaps probably most importantly, or one of the most important things, is about stakeholder management, making sure that the members are included in the decisions of the cooperative, that you as that the governance of the cooperative is always driven by the needs of the members and adding that member value that we discussed earlier. So some of the governance roles in cooperative I thought might be quite useful to set out. So some of the key roles in a co-op are its members. As I mentioned earlier, they are owners of the cooperative and must feel that their input matters. They must be able to challenge the board and the decisions that it's made and hold the board to account. They also have certain rights, so they have rights to receive notice of meetings, they have rights to be able to vote at general meetings, and they have rights to receive reports and information from the cooperative about how the cooperative business is doing. Board member or director, again, this term is used interchangeably. Sometimes you may find cooperatives refer to their board members as committee members. Usually what it boils down to is that they are board members, so whatever you call them, board member, director, committee member, they have the same duties in the eyes of the law. They are legally responsible for the governance of the co-op and have legal responsibilities and duties. In a cooperative, the board is usually elected by and from the cooperative membership. So in order for the board to have a real eye on what the benefit is to the members and the reason for the cooperative being. The board is collectively responsible for the long-term success of the cooperative. It should be effective, so we heard before about having the right skills and mix of skills on the board. And it is the board's purpose to determine the vision and strategy of the cooperative in line with member need. It's important that the board develop a healthy culture and ethos for the co-op and provide accountable leadership. They are also responsible for devising and developing good internal controls, so making sure that the risks are monitored, that they're aware of the risk to the business and that can manage them appropriately. And it's important that they establish robust governance processes, so they know the importance of meeting and the importance of having a good agenda and being able to make good decisions on behalf of the co-op. In terms of the secretary, it's largely an administration and compliance role, but in a cooperative, it is a key relationship and they're seen as a relationship manager between the members and the board. So the secretary often is the first person to really hear what the members are saying and being able to relay that to the board, so the board can think about that in the decisions that they're required to make on behalf of the co-op. So the secretary in a co-op is a really key role, not because it's the person who does the filing with Companies House or the registrar, whichever the legal form of the co-op is, but actually the person that manages those relationships between the board and the members. So what are the first steps to setting up a cooperative? It's like any other entity in terms of a cooperative must be a business. It must be carrying on a trade, and you must have done your must have been able to do your research about actually whether you've got a business case. Are you able to develop that business case and being able to explain it to someone? Often the term used is an elevator pitch. So do you know what the day-to-day activities of that business will be? Do you know who its customers will be? Have you got a business plan? So that's your first starting point. The second thing is to think about who will the co-op be for, who are the members, and what is the relationship between the two. So is the co-op bringing together people who want to have good working conditions, who want to work for it, in which case it's likely to be employees, and you'll be defined as a worker co-op. So in return for working for it, they get a wage, and in relation to that, they can become a member and own and control and have a real decision-making power within the co-op. The third point is probably to decide on the legal form for your co-op and the type of co-op that exists. So if you've really thought about who the co-op will be for and understand what the relationship will be between the members and the co-op, the type of co-op should naturally follow. But deciding on the legal form will depend on a range of decisions. So it's important to get that right. There's no one legal form for co-op, so you really need to think about things like where you're going to get your money from, who's going to provide the capital for the business. It can even include things like will it look, the industry that your cooperative will operate in may or take on a particular legal form. So there are a series of questions that will help you define that. And then once you're clear on the legal form and the type of cooperative, it's important to choose a governing document and incorporate your co-op. Cooperatives UK has a series of governing documents, often referred to as model rules for cooperatives, that make it quite easy to register your cooperative as either a company or a society or an LLP. And naturally, those values and principles of cooperation that we discussed earlier are included in that governing document. Hopefully, in this short session, you are now more aware of what the legal forms are that are available for co-ops. You have more of an understanding of what we mean by organisational type, and that a cooperative is an organisational type, not a legal form. Understand what a cooperative is, and understand a little bit more about the values and principles of cooperation. Have an understanding of the different types of co-op that exist, and understand the first steps to setting up a co-op. There are some further support and resources available. Hive is our business support programme and includes a range of resources and training sessions for people looking to start and grow a cooperative. We also have some in-depth guides that are available out there, really around the specific roles, the governance roles within a co-op. So if you want to know more about the role of the secretary or the role of director, for example, those in-depth guides will help you do that. And we also have lots of Cooperatives UK training and events. It's a really good idea to visit our website, uk.coop, to understand more about these services and advice that Cooperatives UK can offer. Thanks for listening. I'll now take questions.